no bullshit though. I used to have such terrible nightmares when it came to hyenas. I don't know if you're thinking, what hyenas have done what to you? Specifically, I'm talking about the hyenas from fucking, from The Lion King. The hyenas from The Lion King have given me real nightmares in real fucking life. Like, I'm waking up in cold sweats because I think, what's the fucking thing's name? Hold on. Hold up. Here they go. Because they're fucking scary, bro. Come on. Look at this. This is too menacing. Imagine being fucking 9. Look. Nah, I don't trust these guys, bro. What are their names? Sensi, Bonsai, and Ed. Yeah, the more I look at it, the more they piss me off, so yeah, I'm cool. Are hyenas overpowered? I don't think they are, though. But I was just 9 and scared, so there's that. But let's let Tearsy do her shit. They got the marvelous rifles. Tearsy was so funny for no reason, bro.
More enemies spotted. It's now or never.
For no reason. Oh, they got a good lunch.
Captured the mission area. Well, you can't expect to win them all.
I've heard that many a time.
The hyena may be one of the most misunderstood characters in the entire game. Hyena mains
They have
get
blue
flamed
eyes?
constantly with insults
Or that's just
like
the light reflecting
cowardly,
into them.
underhanded, and stupid, when in reality, they're one of the most interesting, powerful, and effective characters of them all. They have several abilities which grant them unique advantages seen almost nowhere else in the game, and a stat spread that is undoubtedly very unorthodox for a member of the carnivorous mammal faction. So today, let's examine the stats and abilities of the hyena to get a
Okay.
better sense of their true strengths and weaknesses,
Right.
and ultimately decide where they fall on the tier list.
I'm going B
First,
right
let's do
now.
a quick
B.
overview of how exactly the hyena became such a popular character to pick in the current meta. Perhaps one of the most counterintuitive facts about the hyena is that the hyena is a feliform, meaning it is more closely related to builds like lions and tigers, not wolves or bears. This is strange because clearly in terms of the majority of their basic traits, the hyena
I
is
guess I
very
would think it was a
canine-like.
dog,
There are a
kinda.
few different subtypes of the hyena
I
build,
don't
but
know.
this video is going to focus mostly on the spotted hyena, simply because it is by far the most competitively viable. But I will discuss the other subtypes later on in the video. Next, let's do an examination of the spotted hyena's base stats to see if we can pick out any obvious standout strengths or weaknesses. And right away, one thing we can spot is just how high the hyena's power stat is. The hyena's bite force is one of the highest in the game, especially when you account for size.
Damn.
Sure, the Nile crocodile and hippopotamus have more powerful bites, but they're all several times larger than your average hyena. But for a mid-sized carnivorous mammal, the hyena is a huge outlier in terms of its bite force. Moving on to mobility, this one's a bit tricky. Mobility is their second highest stat, and indeed, hyenas are quite excellent runners if viewed in a vacuum. But taken in proper context, it is a bit more of a mixed bag. The hyena actually has one of the lowest top speeds of any carnivorous mammal build in the African
yeah.
savanna server. Now, top speed isn't the end-all be-all of mobility. Because of a special ability we'll discuss later, the hyena's stamina is effectively doubled compared to that of similarly sized predators, allowing it to chase other
But the
players
top
for a
speed,
greatly extended
yeah.
distance.
Okay.
Now, because of its lower top speed,
Okay.
it usually cannot close the distance on its own during pursuit, but a lot can happen during an extended chase, and there's very little room for error when being chased by
Shit.
hyenas. Still, having an unimpressive top speed does
Yo.
present some vulnerabilities. In
Ankle
the
just
strategy.
snapped.
In addition to
In
potentially
13
getting
different
dusted by
places.
your hunting
All
target
4
during the
ankles.
chase, having weaker burst mobility options gives you less opportunity to retreat should an opponent decide to counterattack. This makes it tougher to pressure opponents who are standing
Damn.
their ground, as you can't weave in and out of their attack range as safely.
The baby's
and can
already
easily
done
get hit
for.
serious damage if you aren't careful.
Shit.
Which brings me to their next stats, HP and defense. Hyenas exhibit surprisingly high toughness in combat, being able to walk off a decent amount of damage. Still, given
Walk
just how
off.
insanely stacked the African meta is, even with above average tankiness, there's still very little room for mistakes in combat. They're still nowhere near as durable as, say, the honey badger, the gold standard for absurdly high defense stats in the African server. Still, gotta give credit where it's due, Hyenas can handle your average scrap just fine, which is kind of necessary due to their next stat. Their intelligence is hard to place. On one hand, they are excellent pack hunters, able to coordinate hunts.
Oh,
and
this
attack
buffalo
from
doesn't
multiple
even know what the
directions.
fuck
This
to do.
offsets the disadvantages
That spin
of their
move was
lower
working
movement
against
speed a
it
bit,
so
and also
bad.
makes their attacks very hard to defend against alone. However, hyena clans are
That
also
was-
some
that
of
was
the
Simba.
least safe teams to be
But when
on,
he was a
with
kid.
friendly fire being uniquely commonplace. Now, most teams experience at least some dueling between clanmates, but typically this is confined either to specific seasonal events like the Rut, or as a result of a new party leader securing dominance. With hyenas, the fights are fairly constant, especially after a successful hunt, as party members must then compete for loot. This stands in contrast to other top predators of the server, like wild dogs, which have a much less competitive process to split loot. So it's surprising that a build with such high intelligence is prone to as much friendly fire as, say, a rhinoceros. For stealth, hyenas do have some fairly decent camouflage, but this is almost entirely negated by how much noise hyenas make. Hyenas are notoriously loud, not only in their vocalizations, their signature laughs and chirps, but also their movement. Their running gait is a sort of gallop, which is significantly louder than the careful steps of other feliform predators. Couple that with their lack of retractable claws, and they really just have a very difficult time concealing their presence as they approach hunting targets. In fact, among their competition, hyenas are more likely to get ambushed themselves than actually pull off a
Well,
surprise attack.
man, that was
Their
that.
perception abilities are pretty typical, nothing too out of the ordinary in this department. They aren't all that good at detecting hidden players, but do have an ear for sensing commotion that they might be able to jump into. Their sense of smell is also acutely attuned to being able to detect carrion, aiding them in their quest to scavenge.
Alright. Any day now. Any day at all.
Next, the hyena's special abilities. There are two main ones. The first is the hyena's disease resistance. Hyenas are second only to vultures in their ability to ignore poison damage from bacteria and viruses. Now,
Damn.
disease resistance is
I didn't
pretty
even
much
know that.
always useful. It increases a character's chances to recover from injury and lowers the chance of just getting one-shot out of nowhere by a random illness. But having a supercharged immune system is an expensive ability that comes with some downsides too. So this needs to serve a dual purpose, and in this case it's probably pretty obvious this ability dramatically expands the options they have to scavenge from. For most carnivorous characters, the window for scavenging a carcass closes pretty quickly, especially under the heat of the African sun.
Is that an
Careless
elephant
players can
carcass?
easily incur the food poisoning debuff if they aren't careful picking at old remains. Hyenas can get away with being a lot less cautious in this regard. This synergizes
They're like the bottom
extremely well
feeders
with their high bite
of the
damage,
African
which
savannah.
enables them to crack open and digest bones.
Excuse
a
me.
trait which puts them into a pretty exclusive club of builds which are able to reliably access
like
marrow
pigs.
as a form of sustenance. When it comes to large
Pigs
bones,
being
it's
whatever.
pretty much just humans, hyenas, and crocodilians that are actually able to crack them. Their second ability is their massive heart, which is roughly double the size of similar carnivorous builds. This grants them effectively
More
twice as much
stamina.
endurance
Okay,
as they
okay.
otherwise would have, which helps offset their lack of speed outright. Even if they can't outspeed their targets, they're usually able to outlast them and catch them once they run out of stamina. There's not too much else to say about this ability, it's pretty straightforward, but one thing I thought might also be interesting is to talk about which abilities the hyena does not have, since I think that can oftentimes be just as informative as to which advantages and disadvantages they exhibit
Has
as
it brain
talking
power?
about which abilities they do have. One of the most striking absences is retractable claws. Hyenas are part of the feliform faction, meaning that if they wanted to spec into that ability, it is available to them. In fact, before they reallocated their evolution points into higher bite damage and disease resistance, they actually did have retractable claws, which likely would have given them higher stealth, the ability to climb, and higher slashing damage. But for whatever reason, the most popular strategy for the proto-hyena build needed all the help it can get in terms of run speed, so keeping the claws unretracted as a means of traction was a worthwhile sacrifice. Another interesting absence is a tail. Hyenas have extremely short tails, which locks them out of a lot of potential abilities. Now, obviously, I'm not going to rag on hyenas too hard for not having a prehensile tail or anything like that. I'm a human main myself, so it's not like I don't understand the upside of sacrificing access to tail-based abilities. But still, among carnivorous builds in the African
Oh,
savanna,
so what happened to that
tails can
fucking
be
cat?
useful
Can we pause the
counterweights
video
that
and figure
provide
that out,
stability
or-
during a chase, lowering the chances that a
I
player
mean, I
might
guess no
trip and
point.
fall if they take a wrong step. It's interesting, one of the benefits to not having a long tail is just that it's one less thing that other players can attack. Given that hyenas
That poor
heavily
cat.
favor attacking the back end of a target, and even have been known to bite off tails, I have to wonder if hyenas simply have been opting for shorter tails just so that they don't get griefed by their fellow hyena mains. Next, let's talk about their matchups. Given that they compete for the same prey, the most important matchup for hyenas is the
Look
lion
at this
matchup.
lion.
Unfortunately, even though hyenas have a much higher bite force, in 1v1 combat the lion's reach advantage and size advantage are too powerful, resulting in this being an almost completely one-sided matchup. A few paw swipes comboed into a bite to the neck will zero to death a hyena basically every time, and there's not much counterplay a hyena has alone, especially given that the lion is able to sprint faster over short distances, so the hyena can't even run away. Hyena mains are often depicted as thieves, and while they do often steal kills when they get a chance, when it comes to lions it's almost always the other way around. Lion players love to score free loot by chasing away hyenas, and unfortunately even with the whole squad together, it only takes a few lions to drive them away. Now, not all is lost.
They were gone from the
This is
food,
actually
fam.
one of
It's
the situations
okay.
where the bone-crushing bite is most useful, as
Like-
there's still lots of bone marrow left after lions finish looting the kill that only hyenas can access. But still, this matchup is rough, and it's hard to even imagine what ways the hyena could respec in order to challenge the lion. Lions are really the only problematic matchup though. Hyenas go pretty even with leopards, with the only real pain point being the hyena's lack of ability to climb. Leopards exploit this by dragging their kills up into trees, where hyenas can't contest them. But this also puts the leopard in a pretty vulnerable position,
If
and
it
if the hyena
falls,
clan is
yeah.
large enough, they can
Yeah.
essentially trap the leopard player. And as for cheetahs, I mean, do I really even need to say anything? They pretty much have to avoid hunting anywhere near hyenas, otherwise their efforts are all but guaranteed to be in vain. Cheetahs have essentially no options when it comes to defending their kills from hyenas, and they can't climb either, so there's nowhere to stash their loot for later. So with all this being said, where do hyenas
That
belong
nigga just
on the
took
tier
it and
list?
walked away
This is
with
where
it.
some distinction between the different hyena variants is necessary. The striped hyena and brown hyena both have a lower power stat and mobility stat than the spotted hyena, and focus more
These
heavily
other
on
hyenas
stamina.
actually look like dogs,
Instead,
though.
they put more points into defense and perception, aiding them in finding carrion far away. Ultimately, I consider these builds to be a lot less viable, as they have to rely on griefing noobs and janitoring in order to get by. I would rank them in C tier. The spotted hyena, however, is a much different story. It is legitimately one of the most powerful builds in the entire African metagame, and can hold its own amid some intense hostilities. Its special abilities enable it to subvert some of the downsides that come with sharing territory with a larger predator. However, much as I am tempted
I think
to be a
these are the ones
contrarian
from
and
Lion
give them a
King.
rank of S tier, I don't think anything about the hyena is truly game warping enough to merit that top tier rank. They do still have bad matchups, and even for their more evenly matched ones, they can't get careless. Still, there's no doubt hyenas are a serious force to be reckoned with, and easily deserve the rank of A tier. Among hyenas, friendly fire isn't a mistake. It's part of the meta. When high-value loot is on the line, trust goes out the window. If you've ever wanted to see me embrace that same cutthroat strategy,
Oh,
you
this is
need
bro?
to check out The Getaway.
What's
In
his
this
name,
series,
Zach?
6 content creators, including
He
yours
seems like he would
truly,
be a
compete
Zach. That's
for
what's
a
up.
$10,000 prize. But there's
Will?
a twist. They told me I'm,
Will?
and as always, good luck out there.
Alright, thanks, brother. A tier. Okay. Hyenas being A tier, low-key makes sense. I said B. That makes sense. Anyways, thanks again for watching. And I'll see you on the flip.